Hey, and welcome to FitMitTuro Fitness Podcast, a podcast for people who want to get no BS information about fitness and know that fitness is about so much more than losing scale weight. It's about feeling confident in your skin and empowered in your life. I'm your host, Turo Virta, personal trainer, strength and nutrition coach, and most of all, a husband of my beautiful wife, Miriam. Each week, my guests and me will give you some no BS fitness tips and motivate you to take action in your own personal fitness journey as we talk about nutrition, exercise, mindset, personal development, and executing in life with enjoyable but still effective strategies. If your goal is to look better, feel and be strong and experience transformation from inside out, you, my friend, are in the right place. Thank you for jumping in. And now let's jump into today's episode. So welcome to FitMitTuro Fitness Podcast. And today I'm honored to have an amazing guest, personal trainer, nutrition coach, and best-selling author of Menopocalypse, Amanda Thebe. So Amanda is one of the best coaches I know for women who are experiencing menopause, hell, and want to start feeling healthy and fit in their 40s and beyond. So first of all, Amanda, thank you so much for coming to my podcast. And I just would like to get started. So tell a little bit to my audience about you and like who you are, what you are doing. And let's start with that.
And sort of how I ended up where I am, I imagine. Before I start, I just want to give you a big round of applause because I wrote the book Menopocalypse and literally nobody can say it. And you just nailed it straight away. And it's one of those, I'm like, it's obviously, I'm talking about the apocalypse. So it's menopause. Anyway, so, personal trainer, nutrition coach. So I'm now coming up to 52. And when I was in my 20s, even as a teen, loved fitness. I was into martial arts and I'd done that for about 10, 15 years as a kid. So even I worked in a bank and I worked in IT and stuff like that as a career, but as a passion, I loved fitness. So I got all of my qualifications that we all have, like my personal training qualification. I actually started off with group exercise like Jane Fonda. Mm-hmm. I used to work for Schwinn for a long time when they brought the spin bikes over to the UK. So that was quite cool for a while. And then did the nutrition coaching with Precision Nutrition. I've sort of got the standard fitness credentials that most of us have, and lots of subspecialties like pre-postpartum, like or natal. I think it depends where you are, like for pregnant women, rehabilitation for elderly fitness. I've worked with professional athletes with the NBA and the Canadian Football League. I've worked with a full spectrum of women. And so when I entered my 40s, I was like, I feel like I'm a good role model. I don't have a big ego. I give out valid information. And for women going into their 40s, I think I'm a good person to sort of like relate to. But then when I was about 42, I started feeling unwell. I'd just been to a boxing class and I started, it was a really hard session, when you just want to go really, really hard. And I had the energy. Then I felt a bit unwell afterwards. And for about 2 or 3 days, I couldn't get out of bed. I had what just felt like dizziness or vertigo. I couldn't walk. I had to crawl on my hands and knees. I was throwing up and I was like, oh, I've just got this terrible virus. And it got better. But then it happened again a couple of weeks later. And then it just kept happening for a few months. I just kept getting these waves of vertigo and feeling really, really unwell. I went to my doctor and he said, you know what, let's just get it checked out. So he sent me to a neurologist and a vestibular rehabilitation specialist, which is essentially a physio for balance and vertigo. And then honestly, I'll fast forward now for 2 years because I literally spent 2 years in the system with lots of doctors, ear, nose, throat doctors, neurologists, etc., trying to help what was my issue, and they couldn't get to the root cause of it. They just said, we can see you're not well, but we don't know why. We can't help you. And by this time, my mood was completely different. My personality was completely different. Over this 2-year period, I didn't recognize myself. I couldn't, from someone who was, I don't know if you're like this. I think the fitness people tend to be a bit show-offy. We love parties and we like going out and being the center of attention. And I went from being that person to being someone that never left the house unless I had to go to my job to coach people or to pick my kids up from school. I just sit on the sofa for the rest of the day in this really, really dark place. Other things that came upon me were things like incontinence. I was like, what the hell is this all about? I've had 2 children like 5 years ago, and now I can't run up the stairs without peeing myself. Or when my kids would jump out at me to scare me, I'd pee myself. And I felt like my body was betraying me. I just felt literally the lowest I've ever felt in my life. I've never had any depression or anything. And so anyway, rushing forward, I went to a gynecologist for an annual checkup. And he sort of said, how's everything going? And I started crying and just said, hey, it's awful. And I told him the whole story. And he just said, yeah, this is perimenopause. Welcome to the club type thing. And I was like, what are you talking about? What's perimenopause? Which is, and this conversation was nearly 10 years ago now, Turo. And nobody in my world or in my circles was talking about perimenopause. I was now 44. I'd been struggling with symptoms for 2 years. I felt very unwell and my whole personality had changed. And he was saying, yeah, this is what happens if you had any hot flashes yet. And I was like, oh my God, go fuck yourself, essentially. Because I was like, what's going on? Like, I'd never heard the word perimenopause, but I assumed the word menopause was for people a lot older than me. And your periods just stopped. You got a few hot flashes and then that was it. And I just had downplayed it in my mind because nobody had told me the importance of it. No one had spoken to me about this in the fitness world, in the nutrition world, in any of my school education. Nobody talked to me about this life phase and how it's inevitable and we all women have to go through it, but it can be brutal as well. And no woman should suffer. Every woman should get help. And I sort of left that doctor's appointment thankful that I knew what was wrong, what was the cause of my issues. My husband, I met him for lunch and he was like, oh my God, thank God, I thought you were going to leave me, because I just hadn't been participating in our marriage in any aspect at all. I'd completely withdrawn. And I just was then determined to just start talking about it. So I wrote a couple of blog posts. I started being a little bit more open about it, about my own personal journey. And then I completely connected with the experts who deal with menopause from a medical aspect every single day of their lives. And I feel like by the time I'd done all of that, I was in a good place to write, almost like a best friend's guide to menopause, like why we need to know about it, what it is, what treatment options are available. And then in our world, Turo, the second part of the book is all about what you need to do as a woman going through perimenopause proactively for the rest of your life, from a symptom perspective, from an all health, causes perspective, meaning like to take care of our heart and our lungs and our insulin response and all of those things, all the things we know about as coaches. I sort of bridged those two worlds, and I wanted to just give women the tools to be able to say, all right, this is what's going to happen to me. I now know what to do. I'm now not going to be bamboozled like Amanda was, and like hundreds and thousands of other women are.
Yeah, no, that's an amazing story. And to be honest, I haven't read your book, but just what you said, that how much, even it's not directly to me, but I know that with that information, what you are telling there, like I know that I'm going to help so many people, like, as that is also like one of the most common clients who I work with are like older women who are either they are in a menopause or going through. Obviously, symptoms are for each individual different. So that's a great, like, so what is the difference between perimenopause and menopause? Because that is something like what you said, like that I had a podcast before with the Kim Slack, and she explained it. But if there isn't somebody in the audience like who doesn't know it, and I'm sure there is, because that's something, if you didn't know, I was not aware of those old terms, like what is happening. So what is the difference?
And I don't care if I say this 1,000 times either, because not everybody knows. And honestly, every time I explain this, somebody else goes, why didn't I know this? And I'm glad you're listening, because, my husband needed to know this too. My children needed to know this too. This shouldn't be just a secret that we only share amongst women who are in their 40s and 50s and beyond, right? Everybody should know about this. So first of all, thank you for being that person that wants to listen. So essentially, menopause, well, first of all, we can break the menopause whole journey into 3 areas: perimenopause, menopause, and post-menopause. And if we start in the middle at menopause, which is the term we hear all the time, that's essentially a retrospective date. It's a date where a woman can put a hand on her heart and say, okay, I can look back 12 months and see that I haven't had a menstrual cycle. That's all it means. And it's flexible in its timing, because it might be 11 months, it might be 13 months. I mean, who knows? It doesn't really matter. But when you haven't had a cycle for about a year, then you're considered to be in menopause. So it's almost like a time stamp for one day. The time leading up to menopause is called perimenopause, or sometimes referred to as the menopause transition. And it can start in a woman's late 30s and can last between 8 to 10 years. The average age for women going through menopause currently is about 51. That's in North America. It might be less in different countries. But if you think about it, that means that most women during their 40s are going to go through the menopause transition, are going to go through perimenopause. And I usually have a graph if I'm doing a visual. But if you imagine the 2 main sex hormones in a woman are progesterone and estrogen. And estrogen falls in almost like a roller coaster manner. It fluctuates up and down as it declines down to a very low level. Progesterone is almost a little bit smoother in a slide type motion. And so you've got these 2 hormones falling over an 8 to 10 year period, but with high fluctuations of estrogen going up and down and up and down. And so a woman can be presented with symptoms and they don't always sort of make sense. And they don't make sense for 2 reasons. One, because of the fluctuations. You might feel great one day and terrible the next day, and you haven't done anything different. And the other reason that the symptoms tend not to make a lot of sense is because although estrogen is primarily made in the ovaries for reproductive health, there are estrogen receptors all over the body. This was something I didn't realize till I started digging into the book. We have estrogen receptors that protect our heart, our joints, our guts. It crosses the blood-brain barrier. It impacts the size of our brain. Our brain in perimenopause actually shrinks considerably. And then it regrows again in post-menopause. There's some really great studies in New York to show this on MRI scans. But the idea that our brain shrinks means that a lot of women present with neurological symptoms that are usually misdiagnosed by the medical community. Like me, I had depression, I had migraines, anxiety, brain fog, cognitive impairment. All of these are all neurological symptoms that on their own, if you looked at them, don't look like they should be hormonal, but they tend to be if you're in this age range. So you've got potentially 34, 50 symptoms. Who knows? There's a lot. Most women experience them in perimenopause. 1/3 of women in perimenopause will have life-altering symptoms. I think that's the category I fell into. About 2/3 of women will experience symptoms, but it doesn't mean that they're going to be severe. Some are, some aren't. And then there's a whole tranche of women that go through it that don't have any symptoms. So, there's a big spectrum of how perimenopause looks. Like you said, it's very unique. So then we get to menopause and we know that we haven't had a period for 12 months, and anything after that date, you are in post-menopause or considered to be menopausal. Those words are interchangeable. And women who were very symptomatic in perimenopause tend to find that in the 3 to 5 year window after menopause, their symptoms start to die down. And not many women, when they're into their postmenopausal years, are left with many symptoms. They usually get better, apart from There's about 10% of women will continue to have vasomotor symptoms, which are hot flashes, night sweats, cold sweats. They're all temperature regulation. Potentially some depressions may hang around, especially if you already went into menopause with mental health and mental wellness issues. And then GSM stands for the genitourinary symptoms of menopause, which is sometimes called vaginal atrophy, but essentially anything in the pelvis region to do with the integrity of that area, which can include UTIs, urinary tract infections, vaginal infections, dryness, receding of tissues, tearing of tissues, painful sex, incontinence issues. All of these fall within the pelvis area. And that usually doesn't show up until women are in their 60s. And it's maybe after having 10 years of not having an estrogen feeding that area, they start to show up with these problems. And the solutions for that are actually easy, cheap, and available to all women. And so actually the education post-menopause is as important as the education for perimenopause, in my mind.
Wow, that's so much new information. Like that, it's so. I'm so honored to have you here to share all this information. So, when it comes then when you have those kind of symptoms like hot flashes, those hormonal imbalances, is there something what you can do like naturally, or is there some like a therapy, hormonal therapy?
It depends, right? Yeah, for sure. There's treatments available. So when I'd like to just emphasize that when I talk about menopause, I don't talk about this as an opinion. I use the medical consensus. The information is out there. I feel like I'm just like a hub to just spout out the medical information as we know it, because it matters to me from an integrity standpoint that I don't become too opinionated about anything, that I just talk about treatment options as we know them. And so if a woman is presenting with severe symptoms, that can include the vasomotor symptoms, the temperature stuff we talked about, which are really, really awful when women have them, because they can have 30 or 40 of these a day. It can be horrible. Sleep issues, some neurological issues, like we said, like the brain fog, depression, anxiety, that type of thing, and also vaginal issues. If women present to their medical professional with those because they feel as though their quality of life is impacted, then they should be offered menopause hormone therapy. In the UK, they call that HRT, hormone replacement therapy, which isn't really a very accurate term for it, because we're not replacing hormones. We're literally sort of topping up. Essentially, it's quite a very low level that women are offered, a lot less than the original hormones they had and a lot less than birth control. It sort of adds like an equilibrium. It's those crazy estrogen fluctuations can calm down a bit when you're on like an additional amount of estrogen. So that's why it's given. There are some risks associated with it, and there are some benefits associated with it. It really depends on the individual and their circumstances. If you want to afterwards, I can send some resources to help women navigate this. The main thing that I would say about this, without going into too much detail, is that the majority of women who have severe symptoms who try hormone therapy feel better when they're on it. Right. So it's safe. We know that it doesn't cause cancers. But if a woman has estrogen related cancers in the past, like breast cancer, then it probably isn't going to be a good fit for you, because all estrogens feed your cancer. So there's always going to be exceptions. And this is when it's super important to have a team of medical professionals that will look at your whole health history and determine if it's appropriate for you. So, but I will also say that I feel as though we've gone from the 2002 is when women stopped taking hormone therapy because of an inaccurately portrayed study that was done. Women stopped taking it for fear of catching breast cancer from hormone therapy. It's since been sort of like reviewed, overturned, and it's not the case. We can categorically say hormone therapy does not cause breast cancer. But the pendulum has swung the other way. And especially in the UK, I see essentially the message that hormone therapy is for everyone. Every woman should be on it. And it's gone too far the other way, in my opinion. What really happens in the middle, and what's all of the medical societies talk about all the time, but don't have the loud amplified voices, is that hormone therapy should be the first line consideration for most women. There are going to be women that hormone therapy is contraindicated against, and that can be for a number of reasons, the main one being an estrogen positive breast cancer. And then there are women that try it, and I can put my hand up and say, this is me. Hormone therapy made me worse. It was a horrible fit for me. And if you're sensitive to hormones, which many women can be, it can feel terrible, right? So consider hormone therapy. It's okay if it doesn't work for you, because there are also non-hormonal pharmaceuticals. Ultimately, the best fit for me for my chronic migraines and my depression was a low-dose antidepressant, which had off-label benefits of helping with vasomotor symptoms. There are actually a whole load of anti-seizure, antidepressants, and anti-anxiety medication that can help with other symptoms as well that are related to menopause. And that's good news for women who are breast cancer survivors. Moving away from that, there are some complementary therapies that people try, like acupuncture and herbs. I don't like to comment on those because the studies aren't strong enough. Mm-hmm. They're not recommended highly enough by the medical societies yet. Until robust data is available, I'm like, yeah, try it if you want. It can probably do you no harm, but not all herbs and supplements are harmless either. They're not regulated, and taking too many can cause issues and also have contraindications with other medications. So be careful if you go down that route. Mm-hmm. Moving on from that, I highly recommend, if it's available, psychological treatment. Like if you need to see a therapist, cognitive behavioral therapy can be really helpful. We've seen that can actually change the way the brain functions, and that's been shown in MRI scans. So that's valid. A pelvic floor physiotherapist, if you're struggling with vaginal incontinence and tightness, and all of those can be a really great health professional to add. And then last of all of the lifestyle stuff, all of it, Turo. And I'm talking about not just eating well and moving a bit more purposefully and with a little bit more focus, but how we approach aging. That's one of the big things I talk about all the time, is that, menopause can often be associated with being past it, or invisible, or on the scrap heap. Or I did a post yesterday where women in a conference that I spoke to said they're so tired of the narrative out there saying that they're deteriorating. It's so harmful, and it's just not true. And so the mindset and the words we use as we age matter, and then focusing on sleep and stress. So it's a big puzzle for me. Yeah. I don't think one size fits all, and it's tiresome when I hear that there's a panacea out there. There is no magic pill. There isn't, yeah. And we have to stop talking like that.
Yeah, no, I love it, and that's. But now, people are searching that one magic pill, and then when you are telling that there is not one, that there is, it's not that what you are looking at. There are many possibilities, but like you said, that I think I'm also a big believer that mind is most powerful thing, what you can have, and it have proven so many studies that how much is that placebo effect, and how much it's affecting if you actually believe, or how if you are thinking. How you are thinking, if you are more like a positive person, or are you a person who is always seeing only troubles and problems, and that I'm not just losing weight, or I'm having this, and it's just weight how it is, and there is no way out from this, and until you are believing that, it's going to be so hard.
And I think the placebo effect is about 30%, right? Is an improvement from some of the stuff I've read. I'm not dying on this hill or anything, but I can say from a personal standpoint, when I was deep in a depression that I literally couldn't get out of, which was made worse by hormone therapy in my case, that can happen. I just thought, I don't want to up every morning and feel like this? And is this how I'm going to be now? Am I literally looking down the lens of another 30 or 40 years, feeling as bad as this? And so I completely understand it when women say, like, I like, stop talking about mindset, stop talking about exercise, because I hate my life and I hate the way I look. And I'm saying to you, I understand, I empathize with you, because I was that person. But you have to look at this from a multi-pronged approach. If your life is that bad and you're suffering, you've got to get medical help. You just have to. It's important, it's imperative. And that may or may not be hormone therapy. You'll find what's good for you. But if you're doing those things and you're not looking at the other aspects of your life, you're missing some of the most important pieces of the puzzle. And so, and the idea that you're literally going to deteriorate and be full of disease and deficiencies as you age is medically incorrect, and also doing all women a disservice. Like, I'm really vocal about this, and people are like, why do you care? And I'm like, I care because I don't, as a 52-year-old woman, don't want to be considered to be deficient in any way or deteriorating. I think that I actually fight back at that narrative more than anything, and want to be stronger than ever when people say that, right? Not just physically, but emotionally as well.
Yeah, no, it's not, it's like so somebody who said it, like it's that age, it's in your mind, but that is so true, like that you can it's only number what you see in your ID card, and that's it sounds like a little bit corny, but it's actually truth.
Yeah, how do we give those messages to her when we know, like, from a behavioral science standpoint and from a exercise physiology point, like this is our world. How do we not diminish somebody's experience by saying, yes, there's so much you can do from a mindset standpoint? It almost sounds like you're just saying it's all in your head, and we're not saying that at all, but we do know that those things work. And so I find, as somebody in social media like yourself, I don't have 300,000 people on TikTok, though. He's trying to persuade me to go on, and I'm not sure. But anyway, it's that, how do you give a balanced conversation without diminishing somebody's responsibility and without trying to sell them a magic pill? No, eating 5 servings of edamame is not going to stop, like, menopause happening. And, I just look at women and say, please just stop and think before you just take in what people say. If they're bamboozling you and trying to upsell you with something that they can fix you, then that's a red flag. Yeah, I was actually going to get a scarf made of red flags, and I was just going to wear them and wave them around every time somebody said some bullshit that is literally out there to exploit women. And it drives me crazy. And if I look like a whinging old hag, then so what? I don't care. I don't care.
Me neither. Like, I think we are both in this industry for the same reason. We are here to help people, and with honest information. If you are here, unfortunately, there are so many people who are around who are making here the most easiest money as possible. There is nothing wrong with it, that you have some success. Everybody wants success. Everybody wants more money. There is nothing wrong with it. But I personally, I would not live if I would give out some bullshit advice from my heart. And even, it doesn't matter what kind of amount of money I would make, I would not sleep my nights well if I know that I'm misleading people and giving some advices. It's another thing if you are not knowing better. But
I agree. And you know what? Like, how many times have we said something and then had to come back and say, you know what? We've learned from this and we've evolved and we know now. And I've done that a lot of times. I've turned around and sort of said, I was wrong, and this is what we know now. Because if you don't have the ability to do that, then you're not truly embracing the scientific model, right? Which evolves, right? And so I'm like you. If ever I say something I think is wrong, I literally lose sleep over it, and I just can't be that person, even though I'm outspoken. Like, I hate conflict. I hate it. Oh my God.
Yeah. No, but now it's in social media. Like, but it was, for me, it was like something like what I stopped to, I don't try to please all coaches or, if I don't care. I put it out. If I'm wrong, I tell, like, there is all the time new studies coming. Like, it's not if you think back, like I'm 40, you are 52. If I think that when I was in my 20s, you were in your 20s, what kind of information? Like I was there running with some belly fat belt, trying to sweat more on my belly because I thought that that's the best way to lose belly fat. I was there. I have done it. But now when I see that people are marketing like those, like that you put some fat burner or some belt on your belly and you hope that you are losing belly fat from that, I could not. I get pissed off, but obviously,
I do as well.
But I've got.
If you know it's true, and so then I think how we use our platform matters. And so I have in the past twice called out somebody personally for the information, and I've tried to do it in a respectful way. Like, do you think that this is the best? And the backlash from that, the personal attacks that I got from that, and it was actually so stressful. It made me not want to do this. And so now if I see something that I know is factually correct, I just put out good information that I think is in line with any consensus or any scientific, like rigorous data. And if that means I'm doing an underhand dig at someone, so be it. But I literally can't personally attack and go down that route, because it's more, my boundaries are better than ever in menopause. I went through such a hard time that when I sort of emerged from the cocoon of perimenopause, I sort of thought to myself, so what I want to do is I want to give, like you said, honest, truthful information. And I want to support women through this time. I want to be an educator and an empath, and I want to always maintain my integrity. And if that means saying no to lots of opportunities, like you said, you could have made a lot of money. So could have I. All the time I say no, right? And if it means that, like, I lose some followers because of my stance, like recently I've been outspoken about women's rights in the USA. It's a simple black and white argument for me. If you believe that, like, I'm going down a rant now, if you believe abortion should be banned, then really you can't be in my space at all. And so I'm okay being that person, but people just need to know that it comes from a really heartfelt place.
Yeah, no, I'm exactly the same. Like, you have your own opinions, and now what I see a lot of in social media, what is getting a lot of attention, and if you are not in TikTok yet, if you are making sorrows, if somebody is attacking you, you should never ever go to TikTok. It's that's the worst platform now. Like, if you put, it doesn't matter what information you put, there is always somebody who knows better than you coming to correct you, asking some studies or something as that. I'm not a doctor. My goal is to put some simple information what everybody understands, and I don't need to put some all study numbers what I have read in my posts, like who it is helping. It helps maybe doctors who want to check those studies, but for regular people, it doesn't help. It doesn't. No. It's just the proving that you are talking some truth. So that is something what I and like social media, I'm sure you will get also like a lot of promotions getting some, but who, if you are ready to sell your soul with getting $100 or something, you are doing it, then you get your money, but you lose all your respect and everything. So
that's it. You've got no respect yet.
So what is then something like what I get a lot of often question like that? Why is that weight loss in? Let's talk a little bit back to menopause things like that weight loss in menopause. Like, what is there some, like you talked earlier about hormones? So is there any like reasons? Because many women say that losing weight is almost like impossible when you have menopause, or it's getting definitely harder. Like, is there some? What are the reasons for that?
So it's interesting. So in my book, I have a chapter and it's called "Why Am I So Bloody Fat?" Because I didn't want to do a chapter on weight loss, but it's sort of like ignoring the elephant in the room. And regardless of whether we want to talk about it or not, there's a vanity aspect to menopause that women are frustrated with. So, they'll go through all of these symptomatic changes. they'll put weight on, they don't recognize themselves, they've got external pressures happening at work with their children, etc., and they're getting older, there's wrinkles, there's cellulite, there's gray hair, and so it all seems to happen at once, right? And I think that this is when we talk about the mindset thing as well. This is like a really hard thing to cope with. A lot of women don't like change, but this is a lot of change all at once, right? So first of all, I sort of want to acknowledge that we know that most women, about 70%, will put on between 5 and 10 pounds through the menopause transition. So that doesn't mean like overnight. I mean, we already said 8 to 10 years is the length of time that women can be in perimenopause. And so these things do creep up on us. And we can both say, with working with so many clients, Turo, that we've seen this, right? We've seen that our men can put weight on, and it's never one thing. It never is. And so the knee-jerk reaction is to like say, oh, it was all of the rice I was eating, so I'm just going to stop eating rice and bread. And it's just, it gets them in a tailspin. But 70% of women do put weight on. So why, right? Why does that happen? Well, it's really interesting. There's no data that specifically says that losing estrogen and progesterone cause weight gain. So we can't actually hand on heart say menopause causes weight gain. And nobody likes that answer. Neither do I. I didn't like that answer.
I love it. It's a kind of relief for many, like that, because we always we have to find some excuse. Like it's a lot easier when you say that it's those hormones, like it's because of that. And when it's the reality is like that, you look those small details what you could maybe affect.
Right. It's so right. So, but then nobody also wants to hear stop blaming menopause for your weight gain, because that's simplifying something that's quite complex. So you and I know, and hopefully the people that are listening to this podcast know, that you can only put weight on if you're in an excess of calories, if your energy balance is positive, if you're eating more calories than is necessary. And yes, like there may be some underlying conditions that make that more challenging, but if you've got underlying conditions, you already know about those, like PCOS, or if you already have like insulin resistance, or even if you're obese, there may be genetic stuff happening. I'm talking about the majority of women that go through menopause. We can't blame our estrogen and progesterone declining for the actual weight gain. But what we know happens during that time is a number of things. I told you that estrogen impacts many of our systems in our body. It impacts our hunger hormones. So ghrelin and leptin are impacted, which turns around and exposes itself as I'm hungry all the time and I'm never satisfied, right? And that's happened a lot with women. Symptomatically, if a woman is spending 3 or 4 years really struggling with symptoms, which many do, then the hyperfocus isn't on our nutrition or our movement. And so we potentially are overeating, even if it doesn't feel like it. And that's a simple way to understand that is to just pay attention. And if you can track and it doesn't kick off any sort of emotional eating disorders, actually try it for 2 weeks and you'll see you're likely eating more than your body needs. And I can tell you that I put 10 pounds on in perimenopause, and I was like, I'm tired of this shit. There's got to be a reason. I tracked my food and I was overeating by about 1,200 calories a day and didn't even know. And I do this for a job. Oh my God. I mean, we've seen in studies that registered dietitians actually did a study where they estimated their calories, and they all overestimated about 400 calories a day. It's super hard to do. So accept that potentially you're overeating. You're maybe not exercising as much because you literally don't have the energy, because chronic fatigue is one of the worst symptoms of menopause, the worst. Like our energy metabolism sort of starts in the brain and it's completely impacted. And so you might have been doing tons of exercise before, and that's really had to pull back. And while exercise isn't a driver for weight loss, it's part of the conversation, right? And then in addition to that, we know that the declining of these hormones makes our body distribute fat in a different way. So we become more heavy in the belly than we do in our thighs and legs, which are usually there for child rearing years. And so because our reproductive system is essentially shutting down, the fat deposits move to our belly. And so that can be difficult to deal with, seeing the whole change of our body. Like, so I'll keep using myself as an example because I'm the only person I know a lot about. And I have lost that 10-pound weight, but my shape is completely different. And I'm like, my exercise is all the same, and exercise is the driver for body composition. And so like, we have to have a level of acceptance along the way. And so the other thing as well is, the last bit I would say is like the cortisol insulin sort of model and response, that like, if we sort of talk about them together, we know that estrogen is intrinsically linked with our cortisol response. And so women have higher levels of cortisol, and that the best way to deal with that is with mindfulness training, sleeping better, walking a lot, and all of the lifestyle things are the best things for managing our stress. And when a woman has high cortisol, it increases her hunger. People say cortisol equals belly fat, but that's not actually factually true. It's just a simplification of something. What tends to happen is high belly fat makes us want to eat more. Yeah. And then our glucose and fructose sensitivity is definitely altered during this time as well. And does that mean we can't eat simple carbohydrates? No. But what it means is they shouldn't be the primary carbohydrates we eat in our diet. You're not 20 anymore, Sheila. You have to look for better quality foods. And so taking our carbohydrate focus to really pushing for the whole food sources where possible, or the resistant starches and the complex carbohydrates in the form of vegetables and grains. Like the diet model doesn't change very much, but the focus needs to look for more fiber, more complex carbohydrates, higher protein intake, because we know that muscle protein synthesis is also impacted. Our ability to gain fat increases, and our ability to build muscle and maintain it decreases. So it's all of these things. Yeah. But the overlying model, Turo, is what? Calories in, calories out. All of those fall within those areas. But it feels insulting to say that it's not menopause causing these issues, because there's underlying things that we can be doing. And honestly, if women were to focus on those things, they would see positive changes for sure.
Yeah, no, and that's one thing. What I would still like, that was awesome explanation, by the way. And one thing, like what I hear a lot, like it's that women, they are saying that you do exactly same things than before, and now you are just not able to. That you are having some threat every once in a while. You gain weight, and you are not able to lose it anymore. And one thing is like also like many women, like you mentioned a little bit about that muscle mass and strength training. Like if you are not you have never done strength training, like it's when it's at up to 35, you start to lose muscle if you are not fighting against it. So if you are not focusing on high protein diet, if you are trying to lose weight, and resistance training, like some lifting weights or using some rubber bands or even body weight exercises. So it's all like you have less muscle mass when you age, and even you are not changing any, like you are eating always same amount of calories. You need less, and it's not that you are gaining like several pounds or kilos per year, but it's coming, like you said, that it's maybe 10 years, 10 pounds. Like it's that slight increase.
It creeps. Just like sarcopenia creeps on us. When you're sedentary and has just been getting older and being a woman or a man, it's just going to happen with aging. But you say you can fight back against that. And the thing is, the methods that you use to fight back against it feel so good when you do them all the time. That's the thing that I think we're not like saying do these things and it's going to be a chore. It's like these things can actually be the most empowering things that you can do. When women start strength training, I don't think I've come across a woman who 6 months down the line hasn't said, wow, I feel so capable and empowered now. Right?
Yeah. No, that is like strength training, especially for women, and who, if you do it properly, there's a different ways, like because many, if you are not some, like, you know it, I know it, if you are not some fitness professional, you don't know what is a proper strength training, like what it means, like that it's not to watch some YouTube workouts and do some glute workout. It's it's okay. It's better than nothing for sure. But if you are actually trying to get stronger, I do a lot of group workouts, like what you said that you are starting. I still do every week, and it's totally different. Like when you are in a group, like when you have a groups like I do have now, I know that I could be doing a lot better. Like in a strength, like if your goal is to lose or build muscle mass, I'm not doing those things in group sessions. And that is the thing with the group coaching. You are not, or in YouTube videos, the goal is that, you have fun. It's like, especially if it's a group class or something, the goal is that you have a good time. It's for people who are maybe they work out once in a week, maybe twice in a week. And it's time to get together. Because if they wouldn't do that, they wouldn't do anything at all.
Well, you're essentially talking about something that I call like the accessibility into strength training, because it can be intimidating for a lot of midlife women to say start strength training. But what you're doing is you're giving them an access point and saying, well, start here and see how it feels. And then hopefully and usually it sparks some level of curiosity, because they do these classes for 5 or 6 weeks and go, actually, these feel okay. I wonder what else I can do. I wonder what else I can add, because I'm clearly capable of doing this. And that's sort of what we're looking for when we introduce women to strength training, right? In my book, I have a 12-week program, and the very simple basic exercises, nothing that you haven't seen before, but and I literally have them doing like 2 workouts on rotation for 4 weeks. That's it, with progressive overload, but they're very simple at home with dumbbell exercises. And I hope by the end of the 12 weeks, they're like, I can lift heavier than this and I can do more than this. Hopefully you can, right? Because if you're doing it right, that's the ultimate goal.
Yeah, no, I usually, if somebody is coming to me who have never done strength training or is starting, I probably do even one different workout and tell that do it 2 times a week in the beginning. That was one mistake what I did, and probably you have done it also in the past. Like we have done all these mistakes, and like when people are coming to us, like coaches, like they are usually highly motivated. That something have happened, and there was that one click, and then now it's getting started, and now I'm paying for a coach for accountability and going, and then clients came in and they were saying that I'm not doing anything now, and now I would like to start working out, and how much you have time. I have time, I can do whatever it takes. I go every day or 6 times a week. And I was like, wow, let's go and designed a program for 6 times a week. And I thought that now you're thinking like that, those your own wins, what you can get, like that now we get some transformation picture and it looking good, like a fast progress. And what the reality was that it took like usually 2 weeks and they quit. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like that, why they are just not motivated. And then you understand, like more experience you have, that you can't start that way. Like that, it's now I say always like that if you want to start 6 times a week, I said start with the 2 or 3, never ever more. And
isn't that funny?
No,
yeah. and when I was 40, I think when I was in my 40s, I sort of had that epiphany. I think we've moved away from like the muscle confusion and throwing in a cool exercise because you saw it on YouTube or something. And then you're pulling them back to like, you should only be able to hold the plank for 30 seconds if you're doing it properly. Yeah. That type of conversation. They're like, what? Why are we doing things like that? Because you need to understand tension. You need to understand correct form. You need to understand how to use your whole body. And when they start exercising and training like that, they're like, holy shit, this is actually challenging. And I don't need to be doing this 6 times a week, right? Yeah, that's what you're looking for.
Yeah. If you do it properly, like you do it 3 times a week, that's a plenty for most people. And it's enough to see a lot of results, or even 2 times a week. It's all like what I used to say, that it's why to work out more if you are happy with results by doing less. Like work smarter and not harder. Like because now community is so much that
harder is better, and that's not the reality for most of the people, especially for women or older people. You have your career, you have your family, you have your kids, other things what you want to enjoy life also. It's not like for us coaches, fitness is like pretty high priority, but for most of the people it's not their own health. It should be probably for many people higher than it is, but it's not really high priority.
And there you go, we find ourselves in that middle ground again, right? Like where there's obviously lots of people are probably in the US, about 80% of people that do not get enough exercise. We're probably in the 10%, but we want to shift that ratio a little bit, don't we? And, the training smarter, not harder thing is more important than ever, especially through perimenopause, when I was talking about the fatigue levels, which we know is to do with the estrogen sort of component of the whole journey, is that, I try and encourage women, like if they've got like a scripted schedule for workouts. And so, if they have one where they're going to work out 2 or 3 times a week, 3 to 4 times a week, but fatigue is literally not getting them off the sofa, then they have to have some type of body awareness that allows them the capability to say, maybe today is not the right day to do that, because if I overextend my body, then the recovery is going to be so much harder, because we know of the cortisol response being impacted. And so I definitely try and give women the permission, or I obviously don't give them the permission, but try and allow themselves to have that conversation that says, I get to decide today whether or not I'm going to work out or whether I'm going to push myself. And I think it's really important, but again, there's a balance to be had there. And so I use like a scale 1 to 10 on that. And so if I ever woke up in that 1 to 3 scale, that being the most exhausting or symptomatic or whatever, that day a workout's not going to happen, but I insist on making myself go for a walk, even if it's for 5 minutes. Just movement is the key to the underlying success, because daily movement compounds, and we look forward and we see that it makes us more active adults, aging adults. And then in the mid-range, I'll say, well, okay, I feel good enough to work out. I'll maybe just do like a 10-minute workout because I don't have all my energy. And that fitness snacking attitude to me is so important to menopausal women when they're not feeling at their optimum. And so either they're going to start it and not be able to complete it because they don't feel like it, that's okay. Or they might start it and think, oh, actually, I feel okay, I'm going to keep going. And then when they're in that later range, that 8 to 10, where they wake up feeling pretty normal and energetic, it seize the day. Do it. Do your workouts, go for it. And sort of give yourself that sort of flexibility, but also remembering on the other side of that, that you are capable, and you actually are probably more capable than you think, and doing something, all or something is better all than all or nothing, right? Because typically we'll stop, we'll go, I can't do it today. And I'm like, well, do something, go for a walk. Like, and I know how that feels, and I know that it will make you feel better.
Yeah. And I love it. Like, because that is what many people like, all in or nothing. And then, you are kind of, they are not excuses. If you really have those, like, there is no, it's never ever going to be perfect days or to work out. But like what I love to say, that do not make promises for yourself if you are struggling with that all in or nothing mindset. And even you have some worst day, like do not make promises what you can't keep to yourself. Like if you have your goal is to work out 3 times a week, if one day you have a bad symptoms, you don't feel well, get at least started. Like, do change your clothes, do a minute of workout, or go for a 5-minute walk. And then when you have started, you still are like that. Okay, I'm not, I don't feel well today. That's it. Call it for a day and do it for next time. But so you are at the same time, you are keeping that promise, what you have made for yourself. You tried, you listen to your body. It's not to push yourself like as hard as possible. It's just to keep that promise and try next day again. And that's the way how you are actually consistent.
And that's how you train smarter and as well, like, and when you do the workouts, like I am, like when you're working out with Turo or myself, it's like make the most of your time. Your workouts don't need to be 2 hours long. It's crazy. No. You can get a really good workout in 30, 40 minutes, and it can be enough if it's done properly.
Yeah, no, I think I have never been in that good shape that I'm now. And physically, I'm 40. I used to be a professional ice hockey player, but now my workouts, they are never that long. I think I never spent more than an hour. And what I actually have lately, like what is kind of unsexy stuff, is to do some mobility stuff. That's not that's so beneficial. And I just actually got literally message from one of my clients, like she had a terrible lower back pain for 4 months, and did with her yesterday a session, just the mobility stuff for hips, ankles, back, and she was yesterday that, it's actually hurting a bit more, and today she sent me message that she's crying that the first time in 4 months she woke up without pain.
Oh, and, that's amazing. Yeah. And it's so important as we get older to be mobile and flexible. Yeah.
It's all those, like, then to avoid injuries, you are not failing and that you are, because we are losing it automatically. If you are mostly like sitting in front of the desk, driving a car, watching a phone, and that all kind of back mobility and shoulder mobility, that's our lifestyle is so sedentary. So that's it makes just a huge difference, and it's something what you should not, with the strength training. I think those are like, that's what I personally do now. It's not that it's right for everybody, but for me, what I love, walking, strength training, and mobility.
So I definitely have changed my attitude about going for walks, without a doubt. Like, because that was definitely like, well, that doesn't count, and I'm like, walking counts now. So there you go. Yeah.
I was same. Love hiking, and when I was younger, like walking, what does it do? It doesn't burn calories. It doesn't do anything, but it's especially for mental health. That's so. It's the best exercise what you can do.
Yeah, I'm going to Scandinavia in a couple of weeks, actually, with my family hiking.
Oh, nice.
But we're not going to Finland, even though I'm addicted to like the Finnish detective series.
Yeah.
Border Town. I love it. But we're going to Norway hiking. And so, I'm so super excited about it. And I always tell my kids how important it is, because their mental well-being as well is super important. So mine make them get out all the time.
Yeah, no, in Norway, you have something to hike. In Finland, you have just forest. Like the highest point is, I think, 1,400 meters somewhere. Like, so in Finland, you don't have any mountains, but there's a lot of forest, a lot of lakes. So it's a beautiful, especially in summertime. But for hiking, like where I live here in Italy, where you have mountains, like it's a beautiful place. You can just within 30 minutes, you can start from home and go up.
Oh, so nice.
3,000 meters, so altitude also. So that's something what I it's my must. It's my way to spend my day off on Sundays. Awesome. So Amanda, then thank you for your time. Tell please for audience one more time how to find you. What is the best way? What do you have your book? Where to get it? Where to find you in social media, your internet? So tell everything how people can find you, and if there is somebody want to work with you or get what is the best way to do it?
Okay, so the easiest place to find me is at amandathebe.com, and from there you can find access to my book. I have a podcast which is for women in midlife. It's not just about menopause. And you can also access my social media from there. I don't work with women at all anymore. I just don't have that capacity. But I am creating with 5 other women a new resource for menopause that will be out in, I think, November time, and it's going to be a one-stop shop where essentially they will have menopause information that's already ready, available, but it's really hard to find. And also a membership site, which is all to do with fitness, nutrition, mindset, yoga, education about menopause as doctors, part of the company. And then there's a clinical assessment side of it as well. So that's a big thing I'm working on, and I'm excited about it. But I'd just like to end by sort of saying to women that, I mentioned this in the podcast, that there's a lot of fear around menopause now, and it's because we're talking about it more. And I want to sort of remind women that our bodies are capable of doing this, but it doesn't have to, but it can be brutal without a doubt for some women. So don't suffer, but also understand that this isn't the end. And I like to sort of like use myself again as an example here. Like at 52, I'm the strongest I've ever been. I'm the healthiest I've ever been. And I don't intend that to stop just because I'm getting older. And so we have to fight back against those preconceived ideas that menopause is the end and we're all going to be deteriorating, because we're not.
No, absolutely. Love those words. End note. And
hold up, friend. Do you love FitMitTuro Fitness Podcast? If so, the best way to say thank you is to subscribe to the podcast and leave a review on iTunes. I know every podcaster wants you to leave a review, but it's because those reviews help the podcast to reach more people. I truly want to know what you think, and if this particular episode resonated with you, would you also please share it? Either send a link to someone who you think will find it valuable, or take a screenshot and post it into your social media and tell your friends and family why they should listen it. Make sure you tag me so I can hear your feedback and give you a little love. And if you aren't already following me on Instagram or TikTok, that's the perfect time to hit that follow button. Thank you for being here and listening to FitMitTuro Fitness Podcast.